The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
All right, fight fans, it is UFC 283, the first UFC pay-per-view event of this new year, 2023, and it is happening in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, headlined by a pair of title fights, a vacant light heavyweight championship bout, as well as a quadrilogy between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. And as always, myself, Brett Okamoto, and my partner, Ian Parker, are here to not talk about the fights as fans or journalists or anything else like that. We're here to talk about the betting lines to hopefully put a little bit of cash in your wallets. How's it feel? Big fight feels for UFC 283. Yes, Ian, we excited?
Oh, look, first pay-per-view of the year in Brazil where it all essentially started. You got two title fights. How they were put together doesn't even matter. That's so far how 2023 has started anyway. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Let's get on the right track here because 2023 did not get off to a good start. Let's just say it as it is. We like to take a victory lap when we do well, but we do not hide from it when we do a little bit less than well. And last week was a learning week for the show. Correct, Ian?
Yeah, that's all of the sound that I hear when I see my results from last week. Look, we hit the parlay, fine. We hit Dan Ige. We really did love that pick. But no excuse going 1-4. Marathon, not a sprint. Always forward, never back. This will not happen again. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you guys, I won't get into specifics, but Ian Parker was very disappointed and angry with himself. If I showed you the text messages, you would see he does take it very seriously. And he's been studying up a storm for UFC 283. So let's take a look at UFC 283. It's a pretty nice main card down there in Rio de Janeiro. You can find it at 10 Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. 5 fights as normal. Gilbert Teixeira taking on Jamahal Hill. A lot of storylines circling around this fight. I'm sure we will get into some of those when we're breaking it down. Figueiredo, Moreno. I mean, what can you say about this matchup? It has given us 3 fun fights already. I guarantee it's going to give us a 4th one on Saturday. Gilbert Burns is on the card. Neil Magny, Lauren Murphy, Jessica Andrade, Paul Craig, Johnny Walker. So definitely some fun ones to talk about. And let's start with the very top. Gilbert Teixeira taking on Jamahal Hill. And I've got some specific questions to ask you about this fight, Ian, but I want to see where you take it first. What do you think? What is going through your mind when you're looking at the card? Hill minus 135, Glover coming back at plus 115.
You know, when you look at these odds, you got to look at a couple things. One, the age. I mean, there's no question here. Glover is in the senior years of an MMA career. He's coming off a 5-round war. You know, he's taken a lot of damage over the years against Iwan Cutelaba, Carl Robeson. They all dropped him. Same thing with Thiago Santos. He had to come back and use his jiu-jitsu to win those fights, but that doesn't take away that he was dropped in the Yuri fight. A ton of damage, and this fight didn't really take place all that long ago against a very fresh, healthy Jamahal Hill, whose nickname speaks volumes to who he actually is. There's no question that Glover has been around. He's got the experience advantage by far, and everyone wants to call him the ageless wonder. However, father time is not lost. So unless he gets this fight to the ground, I don't see how else he can win. People are going to say, oh, the 5 rounds, his cardio. But Jamahal Hill showed us that 5 rounds is no problem. He did it against Thiago Santos. He held a really solid pace. And it's going to be a very interesting fight. This will be a really solid test to see where Jamahal Hill is in his career. Obviously, if he wins the belt, but Glover, even at this age, is not going to be an easy test for anybody.
Yeah, certainly not. And let's, you mentioned some of the wear and tear on Glover. Let's take a look at his last 5 fights. You brought up the specific one, the main one there, the Yuri Prochazka fight. That was fight of the year, and I can tell you, fight of the year, you don't win at that by having a first-round knockout. That was back and forth for its entirety. Tough fight. Jan Blachowicz, that was a pretty quick one, surprisingly, as the plus money underdog there. Actually, a lot of these plus money for Glover Teixeira. If you're going against Glover Teixeira, it has not been very fun over these last 5 fights. I do got to ask you, Ian, and you know what? Look, I mean, we want good TV here, right? I mean, we want to give people advice. We want to give people things to bet on. My thought last week was I don't really like betting on this main event. There was just too many variables. The short notice, the odds makers had dropped the line when Imavov was supposed to fight Gastelum. Then he was a shorter favorite against Sean Strickland on a short notice. It just didn't sound right to me. This one also scares me, and I'll tell you why. The variables. The variable of Glover Teixeira at age 43. We just showed a graphic that the guy has not really slowed down. I mean, he was right there to beat Yuri Prochazka, and he would have done so as an underdog. That means he would have basically won 5 fights in a row as an underdog. But Jamahal Hill, as good as he's been, and he's been really good, I have not seen this guy against any type of wrestling that is going to be brought to the table by Glover Teixeira. He has some good statistics when it comes to defense takedowns, but you know, not a lot of his opponents have tried to take him down. Go back and look at some of those fights. There wasn't even an attempt in those, and there certainly wasn't an attempt from somebody of Glover Teixeira's caliber. So I think this is just a fight where I find out, is Glover Teixeira aging? Has he gone past his prime now? Is Jamahal Hill elite? I can't really answer those questions yet, so I don't feel comfortable putting the money down.
Brett, you brought the heat today, my friend, and I love every second of what you just said. Here's the thing, right? So we did see Thiago Santos attempt, but to your point, I think the attempt was kind of more reactionary from getting peppered and beat up by Jamahal Hill. You know, look, everything you said, again, no one of Glover's caliber has fought Jamahal Hill, but Glover also has not necessarily been leading out into the wrestling. You know, he hasn't always done that. Against Iwan Cutelaba, he got dropped, had to come back. Carl Robeson and Thiago Santos. So the thing is this, if he is not able to win in the striking at all, then the wrestling becomes predictable. And if it becomes predictable, you don't have to be the best defensive wrestler to stop takedowns. I think Jamahal Hill, it is an unknown if he can really stop these takedowns. That first fight he was getting taken down a lot, but that was a long time ago. So the fight stays on the feet. Glover has to disguise that. If he gets hit repeatedly, I don't know how long the fight will even go. Glover's chin is not the best. We've seen him time and time again. You know, that graphic of Johnny Walker will live in my brain forever. But for Jamahal Hill, fighting from a distance, he fights very smart, and he's not going to get there and engage and give Glover those opportunities. So if you're telling me this fight becomes a boxing match with MMA gloves, I favor Jamahal Hill tremendously.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're favoring Hill for the fight then. Yes, I mean that's kind of what. You're not really claiming a side, but it seems like you're claiming a side. You're taking Hill in this fight.
It'd be really weird if after that I did go Glover. I give you that. That would probably make some good. Strange. It's like, listen, Jamahal Hill is going to knock him out. I take Glover Teixeira. Now, I am going to take Jamahal Hill here. I think Glover has a path to win, but again, in his last few fights, it just was too predictable. You know, and if he doesn't land on Jamahal Hill or is not able to clinch up and try to press him against the fence and have him carry his weight, then it becomes a stand-up battle in which I think Jamahal Hill wins. I think that's where experience might not matter as much. So I am going to go Jamahal Hill here, yes.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it still scares me going against Glover Teixeira, even at age 43, even coming off of that fight against Yuri Prochazka. But I will say this, and we say this on the show from time to time, if Jamahal Hill goes out and looks amazing, which he might. I mean, he does have the skill set and the power to just blitz Glover out of there. You're not going to get him at minus 130 again in this kind of spot. So I think you're getting good value there if you really are a Jamahal Hill believer. Okay, let's go to Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. I was teasing you a little bit earlier, Ian, that this is the 4th time we're going to see these guys fight. We've seen them in the octagon with one another for about 70 minutes. So you've got all the data that you could possibly want on these guys. I'm expecting a lock of the century here. Is it going to be Deiveson Figueiredo or is it going to be Brandon Moreno?
You know, when it comes to no pressure at all, let's just give an automatic win here. If I were to go more of a comfortable pick, I'm going to say over 3.5 rounds. I don't see someone getting finished in this fight because between the two, it only came one time, and that was Moreno getting the submission. And then we saw in that last fight, these guys just know each other so well. And I think the real difference here might be the takedown defense of Figueiredo working with Henry Cejudo. But then we also saw a really different Brandon Moreno against Kai Kara-France. He was so relaxed. He was more comfortable with his striking. The grappling, there was no concern there. He's not worried about Kai Kara-France taking him down and doing that. I think we are going to see a 5-round battle between the two. I think for Brandon Moreno, he's got to push the pace. You know, Figueiredo, listen, he made weight, but it doesn't mean he looks good with the weight. And in Brazil, that heat, and in that last fight, he was not taking those shots as well in rounds 3, 4, and 5, which is where I think Brandon Moreno can capitalize. I like Moreno here as a slight lean, but my favorite play is over 3.5 rounds in this fight.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some money movement here because you like Moreno, but you kind of lost your opportunity to get him at a good price because when this thing opened, It was Deiveson Figueiredo who was a minus 115 favorite. Now he is up to plus 105. Andrew Davis from UFC Stats and Info tells us that Moreno, 61% of the tickets is on Moreno and 81% of the money is on Brandon Moreno. So it seems like there's a lot of people putting their money where their mouth is, picking Brandon Moreno in this fight. I think probably, Ian, that's because it seems like he would have more ways to win, but Deiveson Figueiredo's, his ways to win are very devastating, and he can pull them off at any time.
You know what? I think everything you said is awesome and correct, so I don't need to necessarily echo it. But I think the reason why it goes, no, listen, I love you to pieces, and if we disagree, we disagree. But you're saying all the right things when it comes to this. I think the difference might be also is Figueiredo has not fought anyone else but Moreno in a really long time. And he's also getting a little bit older. That weight cut can't be easy. When we saw him enter the cage after Moreno's last win and, they became friends and said, I'll fight you wherever, he looked like he weighed 170 pounds wearing that insane sweater, And then all of a sudden you see him 4 days ago saying, I only have 9 pounds to go, and every vein was coming out of him. It looked like he had no moisture left in his body. That's a concern because Moreno is a cardio machine. Figueiredo is going to try to land really early and take those early rounds. So I'm still going over 3.5 here. I think people seeing that posting of his weight and what he looks like is possibly what swung the money in that direction of Moreno.
Yeah, and I think Brandon Moreno is very aware of the hard weight cut that Deiveson has as well, and I would put a lot of money on the idea that they're going to push that pace from start to finish. I think that a high pace is going to be set here for Brandon Moreno. Real quick before we move on to the next fight, you like over 3.5 at minus 190. If anybody's looking at that and says, hey, though, earlier you said you like the fight to go 5 rounds. Do you get greedy at all here with 5 rounds, or how do you make that decision on which prop you like?
You know what? For me, I'm the type of person that I'd rather spend a little bit more and get a little bit, what's the word for, I guess, a safer play. Because, look, if a guy gets tired, and we've been seeing this happen. It happened with Israel Adesanya. It happened with Kamaru Usman, that last minute of the 4th round. And you never know what can happen. So for me, I'd rather pay more to have a little bit more of a cushion there. But if you don't want to spend that juice, I do think we're going to see a 5-round fight.
Yep. Well, two of the first 3 have gone the full 5. We'll see how long number 4 lasts on Saturday. Okay, let's talk about a welterweight fight. Gilbert Burns taking on Neil Magny. Neil Magny, man, he has 9 wins as a betting underdog since 2013. The only person who has more than that is our guy, the heavyweight, Andrei Arlovski. He has 10 since 2013. But what I'm trying to say here is Neil Magny has done some of his absolute best work as a dog, and he is definitely a dog here, plus 380. Gilbert Burns, minus 500. I like Gilbert Burns to be sort of immune to this. This guy is just a fighter. He's not real thinking about stakes and this and that. But this is dangerous. This is a dangerous fight for Gilbert Burns. And him just taking this fight is a reason why I think his stock has gone through the roof over the last few years. Because I don't know many people who would be taking a fight against Neil Magny when they're talking about fights against Jorge Masvidal. Colby Covington's up there. Gilbert Burns is right there with those fights. And he doesn't really move at all if he beats Neil Magny. So this is a risky fight for him. But he is a big-time minus 500 favorite. Do you get tempted at all to maybe try something on Neil Magny because he has a history of playing the dog so well?
You know what? I think if you're going to pick one side or the other at this number, the value has to be on Neil Magny. I think he is somebody that is a cardio machine. He's very hard to put away. He's going to have that length and reach and the way he just fights from a distance. And he makes things ugly. He could be the one to hold Gilbert Burns up against the cage. He could waste time and control time and do it. He is just somebody who has been around for a while. He fights incredibly smart. And he's always there, and he keeps on going. He's got that foot on the gas pedal constantly. And Gilbert Burns is someone who likes to start off really quick. We saw it against Kamaru Usman. We saw it against Wonder Boy. But we also saw Usman come back and win. We saw Wonder Boy win round 3. So this is a really tough fight. For me, I like over 1.5 rounds here. I don't see either one putting the other away, period. And if you're going to give me that number, now, earlier when we discussed this, it was minus 190. It's jumped up to 210. I usually have my baseline at minus 200. I am very comfortable at minus 210 with this chalk at this number. I just don't see Neil Magny getting put away. And the rule of thumb, outside that last fight against D-Rock, it's death, taxes, and Magny by decision. This fight, I think, is going to be a lot closer than the odds say. But give me over 1.5. I'm going to go the safer route here.
All right. Yep, there you go. If you're going to jump on that, jump on it now though, because it seems like it's moving towards the direction of over 1.5, which makes sense, of course. Neil Magny, known for his durability and his ability to stretch out fights. Let's go to the 125-pound female division. You got Jessica Andrade, who is kind of finding her weight class still. I think she's taking opportunities based on just that opportunity. Where's the big fights lie? She's taking on Lauren Murphy, who. Man, you were all about Miesha Tate in Long Island. I remember that. And Lauren Murphy went out there and just looked absolutely outstanding against Miesha Tate. I was thinking maybe, Ian, we might be able to get good odds on Lauren Murphy after that fight. Nope, she's still plus 380, massive underdog here against Jessica Andrade, which you understand. Andrade has been phenomenal throughout her entire career. What are you thinking about this flyweight matchup?
You know, when I opened the show and talked about an ugly recap, I say, oh, we're always forward, never back. And you have no problem just making me remember that whole Miesha play. Listen, Lauren Murphy looked unbelievable in that fight. I also think Miesha just didn't have that, what we thought Miesha Tate usually brings to the table. She looked lost, she looked confused. And lucky Lauren Murphy looked really solid. But Jessica Andrade is a tank. She's a juggernaut, and she's good everywhere. Lauren Murphy, I don't think is going to be able to impose her will the way she did. And when she was able to take down Miesha and hold her down, her confidence grew. Good luck doing that to Jessica Andrade, who choked out Amanda Lemos standing up in that arm triangle, who's knocked out everybody and anybody, and she is just built different in this sport. I think Murphy belongs here, but to say that she could just take Andrade down, that would be to do it, take Andrade down and hold her there. But the physicality of Andrade is bananas. I don't see Murphy outdoing her there. And she will come forward almost like a Vanderlei Silva type of style with those wild hooks. But she also has good head movement where she doesn't get hit. She's extremely intense. Her cardio is good. She's got great takedowns, and she's got good submission. She's very dangerous. So unless Murphy's able to put her on her back, I don't see where she wins. I think this fight is going to be Jessica Andrade's punching her ticket to possibly the next title shot. I like the double method of victory here that's being offered, so it's going to win by either TKO, KO, or submission. Okay. Or inside the distance, however you want to skin the cat. Yeah.
All right, Jessica Andrade inside the distance. And I agree with you, man. Like I said, I thought that maybe after how great Lauren Murphy looked against Miesha Tate, that maybe we might get a number that was in our favor with Jessica Andrade. Minus 500, I don't see any value there. So if you want to bet Andrade, I think you do have to find a way to do it by method. Yep. Let's go ahead and move on to the 205-pound division. Paul Craig taking on Johnny Walker. Interesting fight, as they always are with Paul Craig, man. I mean, he is a throwback fighter. And what I mean by that is that he is a specialist, man. He's going to go out there and try to get a submission. Johnny Walker looked real good against Ian Cutelaba in his last fight. That was as an underdog, but this guy has been a little inconsistent over the course of his career. You feel good about taking Johnny Walker here as a minus 200 favorite?
You know, this is another one where the number was at minus 185 when I picked Johnny Walker. And there's a reason why this number has gone up to minus 200. And I would still take him here, and I would stop there. Yes, inconsistency. That's the name of the game when it comes to Johnny Walker here. You know, he drops Ryan Spann, then he gets knocked out by Ryan Spann a minute later. The Iwan Cutelaba fight, though, you and I were there. He looked great. You know, the ground game was surprising. His striking was there. You know, it's just, I think in this fight, Volkan Oezdemir literally laid out the blueprint. Keep the fight standing. Don't have an ego. Don't go into Paul Craig's guard because his striking, he's going to throw an overhand right to try to get close and pull you down. If it's forced to stay standing, Johnny Walker has an unreal advantage. I think he's more athletic, you know, but if he falls into the trap and goes into the guard, that could be a scary moment. I just don't see it happening, so I do like Johnny Walker here. All
right, we're taking Johnny Walker minus 200, but do not take it too much higher than that if it continues to move in the way of Walker. That'll wrap up the main card. Let's breeze through the prelims real quickly. Let us know kind of what you like, how much you like it. What are your thoughts on some of these prelims here that you can find on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN+.
Well, look, it's sad to hear that this is Shogun, who was last fight, but look, well-deserved, unbelievable career, back to the days of Pride, absolute legend. I'm going to go over 1.5 rounds. Poteria in his last fight got beat up pretty bad, and I think for Shogun, he wants this fight to go a little bit further. I'm hoping he gets to rounds 2 or 3. Give me RoboCop inside the distance against a guy making his debut in the UFC. I just think Rodriguez is a dark horse in this division. Thiago Moises, don't bet it at minus 380. He will be a parlay piece. I just didn't like any of the methods of victory there. And Gabriel Bonfim, look, I'm not a fan of usually taking guys right off the Contender Series. However, I think he's the real deal, and I think his submission game is such a huge difference between him and Lazez.
All right, and then moving on to the early prelims on Saturday. Take it away, Ian.
Jailton Almeida, look, more than likely this fight could end in a submission or TKO KO. I like the odds of the TKO KO. I think he takes him down, gets on top of him, and knocks him out that way. Cody Stamann, this one is an interesting fight. I think Stamann should win. More than likely by decision. If you're going to take it at 370, put him in your parlay. Terrence McKinney, Brett, I am shocked this is the odds. I think the odds makers are confused with the wrong Bonfim brother, because that Bonfim did not look all that great on the Contender Series, and I think Terrence McKinney is a special prospect. Guys, he lost to Drew Dover. That's not something to really be all that upset about. Warley Alves in the next fight. I think he's got more ways to win against Nicholas Dalby. He started off as underdog. People have been hitting that line hard. He was literally plus 110, now minus 135. Nunes should absolutely destroy her opponent here. Her opponent has not fought in 2 years. Lost by finish to both Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer. Give me Nunes inside the distance. And last but not least, I'm going to go with Daniel Marcos as the underdog here to keep the fight standing and win that way.
All right, so there's your full prelim picks. We got the main card out of the way. Let's turn to our first Ian Parker parlay on a UFC pay-per-view of 2023. And let's hit that, baby, because we hit it last week.
I would like to go 2 in a row here. So look, Jessica Andrade, minus 500. She just got to get the win, and I think she does. RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez, I really think this is somebody that in the next year and a half will be fighting for the title. Thiago Moises, Jailton Almeida, minus 1,000. Look, I don't know if that gives us that much more, but he's going to win. Throw him in there. And Nunes, she should absolutely destroy her opponent. Great hands, has more experience in the UFC, and her opponent hasn't fought in 2 years. So at plus 161, not the sexiest number, but I'd rather play it safe and win this one, and we'll save the craziness for the long shot.
Yep, some safe plays, but some high percentage plays to get us across the line. Make it 2-0 on the Parker's parlay. What about your best bets for UFC 283?
You know, I spent a lot of time on this one because there's a lot of favorites here, but I wanted to really get closer to the numbers. Figueiredo Moreno. The fact this is under minus 200, I like over 3.5 rounds here, excuse me. At minus 210, I'm going 10 above my baseline, but Burns Magny, I just don't not see this going past round 2, so we're going to go over 1.5 rounds there. Gregory Rodriguez, look what he did in his last fight, and the fight before that, and the fight before that. He is fighting someone on making their debut on short notice. Give me RoboCop inside the distance. Terrence McKinney should be at least minus 185 against someone coming off the Contender Series, making their debut. As long as McKinney can control the pace and not go for broke unless he really does have that knockout, that should be a win for him. And last but not least, Nunes, minus 165 inside the distance against someone who was finished twice in her last 2 fights and hasn't fought in 2 years. Let's go Nunes inside the distance there.
All right, my friend. 5 best bets, 1 parlay, cashing out at plus 161, and then the big guy. You've said that you're going to hit, wait, how many did you say you were going to hit before June? Was it 6 of these things? 5. You're going to hit 5 before July.
Five.
All right, let's pick up number 1 right here. Where we're going with the long shot parlay.
I feel like if this one hits, Brett, it should count as 2 because not only did I pick people, I picked it by method of victory. Jamahal Hill by KO or TKO, because if he wins, that is going to be how. Same thing for Johnny Walker. That's even at minus 125. Volk and Ozdemir Lid out the blueprint for you. Just follow that, and you have better hands. Back to the well on RoboCop. I just love this guy. I think he gets it done here. Jailton Almeida. This guy, you watch out for him over the next year by KO or TKO plus 180. And Terrence McKinney, I think he wins the minus 125 number I love. But to win by KO or TKO at plus 190, look at those odds. I will let you do the honors in telling everyone what that number is.
Yes, sir. 63-1 for our long shot parlay. Not messing around on the second episode of UFC Best Bets. So, and a knockout parlay. You know, I don't think you've ever done a long shot parlay where we're just calling the knockout every single one. I like that. It's a nice little touch, and it's got good vibes going into Saturday's card, UFC 283. All right, that does it for UFC Best Bets. Remember, you can watch all of these prelims on ESPN Plus, and then the later prelims are on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Plus, and then of course the pay-per-view, as always, 10 Eastern on ESPN Plus. Thank you again for watching the show. From Ian Parker and myself, enjoy the fights, and come right back here for the next edition of UFC Best Bets.